Hello, everyone. I'm Jonah. Nice to meet you. Welcome to my residency talk. I gave it a cool name: water pistols, broken Arabic type, and neon motorcycles. You will notice further more about it later in this presentation. Why I named this presentation like that. Um, These are the main topics I want to touch in my residency talk. It's about like working as a designer in Egypt, Lebanon, a personal project I made called Pomegranates Explode magazine, and then Palestinian activism as an artist in Europe. So yeah, just as a quick overview, how this presentation will unfold. Through my artistic work, I always face this notion of like being in the middle, in between having an Egyptian father and a Swiss mother. And I extremely noticed that in being an artist and a designer, still at design school, that like you're being categorized a lot, and like based on your work as well. It's kind of sometimes even exoticization that can touch this topic. And that it's an interesting notion to have like two sides, one Arab side and one European side. So I always feel like when people ask me like, yeah, where are you from? Like I always don't like to say I'm Swiss. I don't like to say I'm Egyptian. It's mostly a child of the diaspora because like if people of the art world want to label me, then that's my label if it has to be. Here a little bit. That was a Documenta 15. If some of you have been like where different artists as well had this dialogue of like being exotic to Eurocentric art world, I would say. Let's kick off with Egypt. I was working in Egypt as a graphic designer earlier this year from January till April. And it was, first of all, like it was always like these notions people had of Egypt as the land of civilization. So I was interested to kind of like see what is the design aspect of that, the modern design aspect, because we know Egypt as like the country that built the pyramids, invented a lot of modern day civilization topics, from modern architecture to mathematics to makeup, everything. So I was wondering, me as a Egyptian Swiss that grew up only in Switzerland, never lived on his own in Egypt, how it is to work in the creative fields in Egypt. First, before I want to touch base on the studio work then in Egypt, I want to present a project I did before I went to work as a designer in Egypt. It has to do with the revolution, 2011, the Arab Spring, if a few of you are familiar with that. And I took into account me as a kid seeing the revolution only through TV. My family was in Egypt, I was in Europe, only watching CNN 24/7. And I took this notion of like being a kid and seeing the revolution through a screen as an interesting topic for a project. I did this project actually right before I went to Egypt. And that's the project. The project is called The Truth is Hard to Hear. It's a comic series that takes literally Twitter tweets from the revolution, one to one, and I kind of created a horror graphic novel out of it with the statement of what is bias, what is truth in the media. Kind of blurring the notion. I'm taking truth from the people that they were tweeting on the square, and was like kind of science fictionizing it, like making it more fantasy-like. So I kind of wanted to create these hard lines of like, what is truth? Is it even truth when it's like from people that directly report and see it? These are a few pages of the comic, graphic novel. And then, yeah, and also with it comes like me growing up in Switzerland as like being kind of like growing up in a very wide circumstantial area, always been seen in Switzerland as like kind of like exotic. And then I thought like, how is it in Egypt? Like I never really was working in Egypt and living in Egypt. Like how will my perception change of how people see me as an artist? Will they see me as European? Will they see me as mixed race still? Yeah, these were the questions I went to. Then Cairo was where I lived for 3 months, home city of my dad, where my family is from. And that's the photo studio, the graphic design studio where I was working. It's called Arabain Mustaqal. It means 40 independent in Arabic. And it's like we can assume calligraphy and typography based. So me, who doesn't really speak Arabic, never read Arabic script until now. It was an interesting starting point for design in Egypt. And this sentence is kind of like their core ideology. So it always popped up in like their notions, how they work in the studio, what makes design Arab. Because like it's always like a decolonizing question of what makes design Arab, because like we know the Swiss design grid, we know the European standards. It's kind of ironic because I wrote this in Helvetica. So art schools all around the world have this notion of like, yeah, we follow the Swiss grid, we follow the German Bauhaus system. And I really appreciated that the studio I worked in was really decolonizing in terms of design. It's a few of our works. It's quite graphic design based and calligraphy based. So during the time I was there, I also learned the Arabic alphabet, to write Arabic, to read a bit Arabic. That's kind of where we worked and part of the team. And then that's the inspiration for my personal work, actually, which is quite interesting. We have on the left a workshop at the American University in Cairo that I attended, which was quite funny because like I was the only designer that was attending that couldn't read Arabic and couldn't speak Arabic. And then I was like literally telling the other people like, can you write me that down and I'll design it, you know? I really took the Arabic script as a language I don't read and I don't understand, and created this trash pop album cover. Shireen, she's a queen of the Egyptian trash pop in the 90s to early 2000s. And which was interesting because I couldn't really know if I did it right, because it's not my alphabet that I grew up in. But like others were really hyped to see and saying like, that's extremely cool. So yeah, the middle one is a interesting notion that inspired me of the Cairo Metro. This is kind of the logo of the Cairo Metro, and I kind of like went back to this notion of being mixed race, of like seeing myself in Egypt being Arabic, in Europe being Arabic, and in Egypt being European. So kind of like this notion of being passed from side to side. So I kind of wanted to create a little label out of it. It reads mixed in Arabic, and it's the Metro logo in a way. Then coming to the mixed race writers, which was very inspiring by the Cairo demographics, because like Cairo has a lot of a big culture in tuning motorcycles on the streets with a lot of fancy lights that blow up at night and like a lot of billboards. So I kind of was inspired by that into my illustrations that I did as a freelancer in a way. So also I took this notion of like mixed racer as a fun touch of like playing with my struggle, my identity crisis I had. So yeah, this is like illustration, digital illustration, this is risography printing. Because the studio and me, we were working a lot with the risography studio, Riso Master. It's like the first risography studio in Egypt. Yeah. So actually, before I go to Lebanon, like to sum up, it was like a great experience because like the artist community in Egypt is quite small, and like you get yourself around, you meet a lot of people that are like into the same vibe, and like you quickly get the overview of the artist community, so you get a lot of opportunities as well by just talking to people or going to gallery openings and everything. I would love to talk more, but like I also want to talk about Lebanon, which was the second part after Egypt. I moved to Lebanon, so directly from Cairo to Beirut. And Lebanon was an interesting thing because like that's what it actually is. Like that was a photo I took when I just arrived on the first few days. Wonderful beachside, flowers and the skyline. But like what it actually also is, it's a crisis still. I don't know, I can make a quick overview in what situation Lebanon right now is in politically, because like that was extremely important before I started working there as a designer, because the studio I was about to start working in really made it clear, hey, it's like not really the time to go to Beirut right now. Are you okay with that? With power cuts, no electricity, still the aftermath of the Beirut explosion, corruption and extreme fluctuation of the currency. So everything's kind of expensive and kind of like economically ruined still. People are still suffering economically, and there's a lot of protests, there's a lot of civil disobedience. Yeah, so it's not the place to be right now. I still wanted to go because like one of my favorite design studios was there. I chose this picture as a really interesting notion of the Lebanese mentality. This picture is part of the Middle East archive, and it was shot in 2005 during the war with Israel, between Lebanon and Israel. And Lebanon has this notion, the Lebanese people has this notion that I experienced, and I talked to Lebanese people, that like this extreme rock hard mentality of like you fall down, you get back up. That was happening in the 80s during the Civil War, that the country was completely ruined and they got back up. That happened in 2005. Country was completely ruined, they got back up, and now it was again ruined. Because like before 2018, Lebanon was on like a level of like, also nightlife wise, it was kind of the place to be, and then they fell down again. So it's kind of a curse Lebanon is in right now, and it shouldn't be normalized, and it's extremely sad as well. But like I just wanted to visualize this mentality of people still enjoying themselves, being normalized towards tragedy and violence, still being in the pool while there was just a bomb falling on this complex building. So it's really felt right now as well that this normalizing of tragedy is still a thing, which is scary, but also kind of an interesting thing to see in a way, to learn from. Studio Safar was the place I worked at. It's like I was a big fan since forever of the studio, so I was really glad that they took me despite the political situation. Quick introduction. Hatem and Maya, who are the founders. Maya right now moved to Canada, Montreal, because like the actual studio got destroyed by the explosion. So she opened a head office in Canada. So we're actually registered as a Canadian enterprise right now. And Hatem, he was still in Lebanon. He was kind of my boss. What Studio Safar is known for, it's known for the magazine, Safar Journal. And it's kind of like the most popular Arab magazine in the world, I would say. It really tackles activistic topics in a creative way, also not necessarily Arabic, but mostly like forms of resistance in solidarity with other cases. You know, there can be articles about Hong Kong in it. There's articles about even like Ireland in it. Like, it doesn't matter. And I was extremely hyped to start working there. A few works that we made in the past, that they made in the past. It's mostly publications and books, very graphic design based as well. And the other side is kind of very event based. Concerts, this is for example the graphic identity for Boiler Rooms, Beirut. And it was extremely nice to see because like they were really literally running out of designers and they really desperately needed designers, so they delegated as well kind of like cool tasks for me. That's also like illustrations that they made, always a bit political, never not political. I would like to present like the coolest project we were working on while I was there. It was Midan. It was a hip hop festival in Lebanon, in Beirut. And I was there from start till it happened, which was pretty sick. Here we created, first of all, the posters and slapped them all around Beirut. And we were in charge of everything. We were in charge of like the graphic identity, the bracelets, the wristbands, the banners, in the end also the visuals, Instagram posts, of course. Also stickers, for example, merchandise. It was interesting to create merchandise for such a big festival of Arabic hip hop, which I had no idea about until now. And then also I really got this, I don't know, it was an interesting thing to work in a country that still is like on the edge of economic collapse, but still values nightlife. Because I feel like that's a humane aspect of like everyone, if you have nothing to lose, you can still party. There's this saying that like Lebanon is partying in the morning and there's war in the afternoon, which is quite sad, but like it's a quite strong aspect towards their mentality as well. So that was actually the event in the end, and I had the honor to create the background visuals as well, to animate them, and that was extremely nice in terms of programming, working on stage with a VJ, and it was stressful as well because like it was very short term that they needed graphics for the event, but that was actually it in the end. When it finally happened, was a big was good for the heart to see. Yeah, like hard work always pays off at that point, and it was in a really nice area around Beirut. The Hippodrome, like the old racetrack for the horses. And like it was really nice to see like my graphics in the back of the biggest Arab rappers. So rappers were coming from all over the Middle East, like Egypt, Tunisia, Sudan even. More impression. And then I would like to introduce how it kind of started with me being involved in how this notion of activism, Middle East, kind of started. It started with a big project actually, which I'm gonna introduce now. It's a magazine actually, and like I said, also being already influenced by Studio Safar because they're like really based on publication and like magazines. Also created a magazine, it's called Pomegranates Explode. Sadly not on sale yet, but like I hope I can publish it at some point. So this was actually the first time I really took it serious as a designer to tell stories of Arab tragedies, Middle Eastern tragedies. I gave it the name the We Are Fine issue. So it's a mostly graphic design based journalistic magazine that features a lot of stories from Lebanon to Iran to Egypt. And the We Are Fine issue is actually based on like Middle Eastern tragedies. It's an ironic phrase of saying we are fine. Like mentioned before, in Lebanon, it's fine. There's a economic crisis, but like we're fine. What I actually wanted to tell with this magazine is like that this like crisis in the Middle East is not normal and it shouldn't be normalized at all costs. For example, what's happening in Lebanon, like that Lebanon is not in the media anymore because it's like normal what's happening in Lebanon. So I collected multiple stories around that topic of we are fine. That's the cover again. Also collected multiple poems from artists about migration towards Europe as well, of like always in like we have this notion of like the European immigrant kind of being most cases Arabic. Sorry. I think that can play a quick flick through the magazine as well. I also took personal aspects from my story to into account. Also regarding queerness in the Middle East as well, being always if you're being queer in the Middle East, it means always like you're being censored or you have to like hide your identity. I always wanted to feature that as well. So I interviewed different artists as well that were ready to talk about their queerness, growing up as a queer person in the Middle East with me, which was super powerful because like we know like freedom of speech is not really valued in the Middle East usually. So I thought like it's not normal to hide your identity, hide your sexuality. That as soon as you're from Iran, from Egypt, that you can't really share your free sexual expression. Also more like photographers are in the magazine. Then jumping to the next topic as well, it's Palestine. Now the political topics is getting even more political, but like it's always kind of a struggle to create projects as an artist on Palestine. It's always you're on thin ice normally, especially in Europe, especially in the West, and it's a full-time investment to make a project on Palestine in a sense, because like there's also a lot of hate that comes with it, and you either take it or you don't take it, because it's exhausting. Yeah, I can introduce a project I did like 2 years ago. It's about futurism of the Palestinian struggle. And I took it also from actually the stories I heard from my Egyptian family towards the crisis, the ongoing agony in Palestine, saying that like most of my family members, they kind of gave up on it and don't want to talk about it no more. For example, my dad, he really is fed up with it because he had his own struggles during the 6-Day War during the 70s with Israel. And so it's quite interesting that from different generation to different generation, I feel like the generation I'm in right now is extremely in support of Palestine. Doesn't matter where in the Middle East you're from, as soon as you're like having this heritage, you're kind of supporting Palestine. And then I was thinking like, what would the future look like? Because like having a family that is extremely thinking negative about the question, like how would that question look like in 200 years? So we know it from Afrofuturism, a lot of projects that are being done about that. So I was talking about Arab futurism. How do we talk about the Palestinian question in like a few hundred years? So I was like illustrating like, it's kind of an artistic performative project. The two main characters are sitting front row right now. So it was basically, I want to illustrate with film and photography how childlike fights can be and never end. And in Egypt, we have this saying of like, if the Palestinian struggle ends, it's the end of the universe. And the end of the universe, when it's the end of the universe, you never know. It can be forever. So it's this extremely negative notion of like, there's no way out of this. And I kind of wanted to portray it with a fight between two boys, kind of futuristic Palestinian influence, and also take it from my side, from the Egyptian side, of like how we see this struggle, because it's also our struggle. That's a few impressions. There's also video, but like the video I didn't want to show because it was a bit too much exhibition based. It's not really a video where that much happens. But I could have actually shown it, but like, yeah. And then what I learned, I really got into the community of other artists, mostly Arab-based artists in Europe, that are speaking out for, speaking up for Palestine. Doesn't matter if they're making a project about Palestine, doesn't matter if they're journalists. But what I really noticed, especially during Documenta 15, I don't know if you checked out what happened at Documenta 15, but like there was a lot of struggle, and it was a really tense atmosphere that at Documenta, which is like one of the most renowned art festivals in the world, that there was like this dispute in between extreme pro-Palestine activism and extreme defend Israel notions. And it's what really happened was like as well that mostly non-white artists were targeted for being anti-Semitic by speaking out for Palestine. And the exhibition was in Germany, the festival was in Germany, and it was extremely, again, this debate of like, as an artist, as a non-white artist, if you speak out about a fragile topic, you're extremely instantly targeted. So this extreme notion of the Eurocentric art world came back, actually. And it was nice to see that there was an activist notion by collectives who were hanging posters in their actual exhibition spaces. So they actually took their exhibition spaces as a political platform to protest what they're being accused as, being anti-Semitic, hate speech, whatever. So yeah, that was actually interesting for me to learn also for the future, how to take this into account if I want to be involved more. And yeah, that's actually already to sum up my presentation. Kind of like I chose this double page to see like a sum up for what I stand for as an artist, designer, journalist. I don't like to label myself. Yeah, the notion of being rejected as Arabic, the notion of being rejected as European, so what am I? So I stopped questioning that. I just want to make great art. So yeah, I kind of found my safe place in this, because it was extremely frustrating when some people were like, some people are, when you're getting racially profiled while being called a white boy, it's like kind of like, where am I in this world? But like it gives me great inspiration to create art and journalism. So yeah, thank you for listening.